Anu, thank you very much for joining us. I'm a big fan of all the work that you do. Obviously, your community goes beyond the Power Platform and more on the data and analytics. So
Right.
I'm really keen to see sort of the work that you're doing in that space, especially around the data integration. And also, I don't know if you'll talk about it at the end of your session, but you've got a conference that you're running sort of in
Right.
March, sort of similar into the same space as the Power Platform, but more on data and AI. If anybody is interested, just follow Anu. And on the meetup as well, she has all the details in there. So over
Cool.
to you, Anu. Looking forward to your session.
Great. Thanks, Romy. And thanks everyone for coming and giving your Saturday for the Power Platform Bootcamp. And as Romy said, I organize the data and AI related meetups in Wellington. So we have got a global AI bootcamp coming next month, I think March 19th. So the details are on the Wellington AI meetup website. So we are looking for speakers as well as, of course, anyone can join. So attendees are always welcome. But if you're really keen in presenting a topic, we are looking for speakers, and feel free to reach out to me, or the call for submissions are still open, and I'm planning to extend for another week also. So yeah, if you can reach out, put your submission, reach out to me, and we can get that sorted. Cool. So coming back to Power Platform Bootcamp, I'm always excited about data. And today, I think for a change, I'm going to talk about data integration, especially because it is a Power Platform Bootcamp. So I want to talk about data integration and how do we do this in the context of Power Platform. So before I go further into the topic, I'm Anupama Natarajan. You can call me as Anu. I'm a data and AI consultant. I do consulting through my own company, and I'm like pretty much like busy in terms of doing consultancy, and I have reduced that to part time because I love to share my knowledge, what I learn from real world, to my what do you say like meetup members or other members who I can train them. So I have started looking at more into training. So I do bit of training and where I share my real world experiences in my training. I'm really passionate with data, and it all started with I think everyone knows about data is going to be the key, or data has always been the key for any organization or the backbone for an organization. But a lot of us as developers, especially because I started my career as a developer, and the focus was more around building applications and the UI that people will be using. But underlying there is something that is actually really important to surface on the UI for anyone to use it. So I will never deny the fact the user interface is the key, because that is going to be the front end for the user, right? But if you don't have really good data that can support your user interface, I don't think that solution is going to last long either. So it is like the equal importance need to be given for both the data as well as for the user interface. And that's what the key thing that I have learned in my 20 plus years of experience in the IT industry. Cool. So what are the key things I wanted to cover in this session? I know this is a half an hour session and I wanted to make it really easy and straight to the topic. So I'll give an introduction to data integration, because I think there is a lot of people know what is a data integration is. Some people know it as a ETL process. Some people know about, are we talking about data warehouse? So I'll pretty much just give a brief introduction about that. Then we'll touch upon Microsoft Dataverse. I think I won't go deep into that because Romy has covered a really good session this morning, just giving an introduction about Dataverse. But I will look there, or I will look and give my perspective of Dataverse from the point of data integration. We'll look at Power Platform Connect Us and what is it and how does it help with the integration process. We'll look at brief introduction about Power Platform data flows, and some of these things which I'm talking today, they are in the early stages. So some things are there and some things are in the early stages. There won't be great demos today, but I think keep watching this space because I'll be doing a bit more in the user groups once the product gets a bit mature. And also like Azure Synapse Link for Dataverse, this is another one that is going to be key from a data integration perspective. And I'll talk about what it is. And of course, the Q&A is always going to be there. So if you have any questions, feel free to put that in the chat window or towards the end. And pretty much like I can go through the questions and provide the responses. Okay, let us straight away get into it. Okay, so this one you would have known about it. And if you are here and we are towards the end of the day, the Microsoft Power Platform, all the components that you can see starting from Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. And I think one or the other way, a speaker would have touched these components in today's session. But my focus for my topic is all about data connectors, Dataverse. So because they play an important role when it comes to data integration. Of course, AI builder is there, but I wouldn't touch that because it's not about, I'm not training a lot of models at this point. It's all about like getting the data, surfacing the data for my applications and for my reporting, how am I going to do that? So when it comes to data connectors, so how data connectors help us in data integration. So as you know, like Power Platform products comes with a whole heap of connectors, and these connectors actually connect not only with on-premises data sources, but also with a lot of cloud data sources. Same thing with Dataverse. So you need something as a backend to support your Power Platform products. And that's why Microsoft had Dataverse. And of course, it is also called previously as Common Data Service. They more or less the same name. So Dataverse, it's all about storing data in rows and columns, whether you are starting with a greenfield application or you are trying to get data from your existing data stores and then trying to surface it on a Power Platform application. Dataverse is a good starting point to do that. So let me touch about data integration first, and just to remove a lot of confusion around what does it really mean, and then we will look into in the context of Power Platform. So data integration, as I said, like it is all about connecting to various data sources and getting the data from there. Doesn't matter whether the data source is actually on the cloud or in on premises. And the good thing about getting the data from disparate data sources is, so when I say cloud, I may have a database sitting in Azure, and I may have a database sitting in AWS cloud or in a Google cloud. And I may have a lot of data sets sitting in on premises, and due to compliance reasons, I may not able to surface the data on the cloud. And a lot of people, if you look at it, in the last, I would say decade, I would say like pretty much everything is software as a service based. So everything is all about pretty much integration. So you, for a payment mechanism, I just integrate with a payment service. If I want to get an address check, I need to do, I will integrate with an address check service. So it's all based on like, or if I want to do a payroll thing, right? So I will integrate with a payroll service, and it's all going to be as a software as a service. And what it really means is all these software as a service products, they hold the data. So the organization may, like the job will be get done. For instance, if you look at the payroll service, they will finish off the payroll, they send the payroll information. But what happened to the data? The software as a service application will be holding the data. Same thing with the payment processes, like you use things like Stripe, and they hold the data, so they have all the transaction information. How do we get that information? Because we may need to link those information also with other data that we have got within our organization. So this is the process of data integration. So wherever the data is, doesn't matter whether it's on cloud, whether on premises, or a software as a service application, the ability to pull all the data together, and you will be able to create models and get meaningful output out of that. That is what the purpose of data integration is. I think in the next session after me, Reza is going to talk about analytics. So again, to do analytics, you need to have a good data set behind the scenes. So there are various formats of data also these days we are looking at. So usually data used to be just structured data. So yes, I have a database, and it is consists of rows and columns. I'll pull the data and do whatever I need to do. But now with the modern data sets that we are collecting, data can be structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. Doesn't matter, but all these data sets are really important from an analysis perspective. So if you look at from an AI perspective, right? If you want to do machine learning model, if you want to create machine learning models, sometimes the unstructured data is also important to do that. So you can do machine learning model using images, and you can do with the audio files, video files, and stuff. And then when it comes to Semi-structured, like you may have lots of JSON files or things that you are getting from social media channels, like how much value that you can get out of those type of data. So earlier we never considered them like or even thought about using them as a data because they didn't have a structure. But these days all these data sets are getting a prominent importance in there because of the value that is giving to the organization. So data integration doesn't stop in just extracting the data and storing somewhere. But within the during that process, we also do something called as transformation and cleansing of data. The reason for doing that is we get data from disparate data sources, right? And we have to somehow improve the quality of the data. Just because we are getting the data, we can't just use it as it is. And if the data integrity or the quality is not there, your end users again is not going to use your reports or any analytics that you are creating out of that. Data integration is also plays a key important role in providing a single source of the truth for the organization. So what it really means. So I have seen organizations when I go for consulting, right? They will have 3 or 4 data warehouses. Everyone will come up and say like, okay, this is the marketing report. So marketing report, they will have different numbers coming from different data sets. What they lack was the single source of the truth. The reason they give us it's really difficult. So individual or brand departments they create their own data marts, but data integration process is actually trying to get everything into a single source of the truth. So what you are reporting out of that, you get better insights out of that. So typical process for a data integration, as you can see here, you get the data wherever it is, doesn't matter, and it goes through an ingestion process. And of course, like if you want to add AI capability to your data, then you can enrich the data with that. And finally, you can surface the data for your reporting and analytics. Where does things fit in from a Power Platform family? This data integration, once you have done, pretty much you can even store it in Dataverse. So if I look at from a Dataverse perspective, like why do I really need it? Let us shortly look into that. So why do I need Dataverse? I think we talked about Dataverse briefly, but why do I really need that from a data integration perspective? So as I said, data is everything, what the business does in today's way. Dataverse allows you to work with any type of data. So as I said, like it doesn't matter what type of data you're storing, you can just hold on to that. It can work on any type of app and it can support analytics and reporting. So the one thing which I really like about Dataverse is suppose you are surfacing a Power App application or a Power Automate application or a Power BI report, right? So how many data source you are going to connect to? So for instance, I may need an application for marketing and I want to quickly put it through. So am I going to pull the marketing data? Where am I going to hold that? Am I going to directly connect to the marketing data and surface it? Or is it going to be held in a spreadsheet? Or how am I going to do that? Sometimes you may not just need the marketing data. You need to include some employee data with marketing data with some finance data. So you need all these things. But again, these data sets are already residing in your organization in different data sources. One way to do that is to bring all of them together in Dataverse and then you expose it to your applications, whether it is a Power App, it is a Power Automate or Power BI, doesn't matter. So that's another key advantage of Dataverse. So if you're starting from scratch, building a Power App application where you are still in the process of collecting the data, good, you can just create tables and relationships in Dataverse. But if you are an organization already you have enough data but you want a mechanism to maintain that data and report on that data through your Power Platform applications, surface them via Dataverse and then you can surface them via your applications. So when I talk about data integration products, like what I get to see in the Power Platform family, I think this one has been there since 2017, which is the Power Platform Data Integrator. So this particular tool is mainly targeted towards bringing in Dynamics 365 data inside your data in your Power Platform applications. So if I want to get this data into Dataverse to expose it into my Power Platform applications, then you can easily use the Power Platform Data Integrator. So this tool, like whether you are dealing with finance and operations or sales related data, doesn't matter. So you can just get the data from D365 and push it into your or manage it through your Power Apps applications. But where does Microsoft is currently focusing? So yes, we have one targeting D365 and stuff, but what about other things? Because not everyone or every organization just has got a Dynamics 365 environment, right? So that's where Microsoft is now focusing more around Microsoft Power Platform data flows. So this is something like what they are doing is bringing in the power of Power Query. And I don't know whether you have been exposed to Power Query. If you have used Power BI, you know Power Query is actually a plugin which started as an Excel plugin, now has been embedded inside Power BI. So what it allows you to do is pretty much like you can pull the data from any data sources, cleanse the data, and there is a lot of mechanisms for how you can do that. So for instance, I want to split the data with a delimiter. So I want to just transform the data in such a way like I want to split the date and time as separate columns. So all those things previously we used to do through an ETL process, but with the Power Query, they have made it and simplified it really. If you want to enable AI inside as part of your data transformation process, again, you can do that in Power Query. So Power Platform data flows, I'll talk about again in depth on that. So it is also a mechanism where data flows allows you to do data transformation and cleansing of data, which can feed your data into your dataverse database as well as data lake storage. So look at in this diagram. So you get the data from any data source, doesn't matter. You use the Power Platform data flows, which has got the Power Query transformation tool in it, and then you transform the data and then you store the data in here. The key advantage for doing that is you cleanse and you have the source of single source of the data in here, which you can pass it on to downstream data sets like Dataverse and Azure Data Lake Storage. And Microsoft is also looking at enabling end-to-end diagnostics for their customers so that when you have this data in there, so it's not only from operational data perspective, but also like what happens within the application and stuff. So those data is also collected so that you can aggregate them to do end-to-end diagnostics. And finally, they are also looking at establishing the common data model and further enhancing that for wider business ranges. So if you look at the current CDM models, it targets only a few business or domains. So they are planning to extend that along with the machine learning integration out of the box in there. So this is where Microsoft focus is there, but I will also showcase some of the announcements that they recently made in the data integration space. So one of my favorite thing is the Power Platform connectors. So this is something that plays a critical part in data integration, and it supports all the different Power Platform family products like your Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI. So what it does is like you will be able to connect to any of the data source, whether it's on premises or on cloud, uh, quite easily through this connectors. The nice thing about here is like you to connect to Twitter, you don't need to write a API connection or anything. You go there, you put your Twitter account and you establish the connectivity, and then you can start pulling the data straight away. Same thing with any cloud products that we are talking here, or even you if you have data sitting in a SQL Server or Oracle database, you can use the Power Platform connectors to pull the data. And think about here, you can bring all this data, store it in Dataverse, and also you can expose it. Or in another scenario, if the data is only in one source, right? So I may build an application just connects to only Twitter. So I may have a Canvas application to do that. So I can just use this connector to pull the Twitter data to surface it on my Power Apps application. So you can group this data and store it in Dataverse and expose it via your Power Apps application. But if you're targeting just only one particular data store, you can surface them directly in your apps through the platform connectors. What I'm showing here is only a glimpse of that. We have got around 300 odd connectors available within the Power Platform family, and especially Microsoft is thinking around moving 100 plus connectors from preview to production around March 2022. The reason is their emphasis is they want to strengthen the uh, ISV's community's ability to create custom connectors. And also they are looking at building more enterprise grade connectors, even though they have got connectors to SQL Server and Oracle and stuff, but they are further expanding this into SAP and Outlook and stuff. Like you can have connectors related to these things also in a more enterprise grade fashion. When I talk about more enterprise grade, more emphasis on security and stuff so that users can confidently connect to these connectors to pull the data from on premises. So I'll touch on the Power Platform data flows because with data flows, I think in Power Platform, data preparation is getting really easier. So if you are thinking about preparing data for self-service capability, Dataverse is the way to, data flow is the way to go. So this is what I exactly was talking about. You start creating your data flows, and this provides you a no code experience. So we were talking about no code or low code only from the application perspective, right? Microsoft is now bringing that in the data space also. So what they are saying is like if you want to pull data and do transformations, you don't need technical users or ETL developers to do that. You can have a normal non-technical user to connect to different data sources. They can use the Power Query interface to easily transform the data and enrich the data from a wide range of data sources. Finally, they also have the ability to store the output of the data in Dataverse or data lake storage, which downstream can be consumed by any particular Power Platform family components. So this is going to make self-service data preparation much bigger for organizations. So my key thing is around loading the data in Dataverse. Again, you know exactly when to use Dataverse or when to use data lake storage. So Dataverse, I will use it if I want to surface it over my Power Platform applications, while I use data lake storage for more or less like a machine learning or building AI capability over that data. So what data lake storage provides the capability is it provides you the hierarchical namespace. In a normal term, if I on a simple term, if I want to explain that, right, it is basically think about your folders that you have on Explorer, right? Nested folder structure. Data lake storage provides that. A typical blob storage where you have a container, you dump all the files in there. There is no organization of the files. But with the data lake storage, when you have data, you can pretty much organize them in a folder structure, and also you can store you can secure the folders with the proper security, because each and every folder you can apply security on them and you can secure them with data lake storage. So pretty much if you are doing operational, I will go under here. More analytical, I will go under the space of data lake storage. So I talked about Power Query in data flows. I think Power Query is the data transformation and data preparation engine. It started as an Excel plugin, and because of its popularity in Excel, I think it started in Excel 2013. And then Microsoft embedded that in Power BI when Power BI came into prominence in 2015. Post that, now they have made a lot of enhancements in Power Query, and now pretty much Power Query is getting embedded both in desktop based applications as well as web based applications. When I say web based, like you can have Power Query online, so where you can just go and do data transformation using Power Query, which is served on a web browser itself. So this is what I was talking about. So you can have in these products, all these products supports Power Query. That shows how much Power Query is becoming more and more prominent these days for doing data transformations. So if you want to cut code, right? So Power Query provides you the graphical interface to do data transformations. But if you are a person like me, like I would like to cut code, it will automatically do that for you when you are dragging and dropping. But you can also write your own code in M language, and then it will be translated for data transformation. But if you're using Power Query Desktop, which is coming as part of the Power BI Desktop, that is a free tool that is available for you to use. And the one thing is it is not available for Mac. Okay. And Power Query Online. So Power Query Online is available in all these things. So you have within Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate. So you can do transformation in all these things with the help of Power Query Online. Last but not the least is data flows. Microsoft has now starting. So if you look at this journey of Power Query, it started with Excel, then with Power BI, Then they started integrating that in the Power BI portal. Now they are introducing that inside the data flows. So pretty much Microsoft intention is really clear here. Their target is making whatever products that they are creating in a low code, no code fashion, making it easy for the end users. So that is coming into the data space also. So if you are thinking about pulling data from disparate data sources and do transformations and expose it via your Power Platform applications, data flows and Power Query is the way to go. If you haven't started with Power Query, I will definitely encourage you to get inside starting to learn about Power Query. There is nothing new to learn. It's all about graphical user interface. Sorry, the image is not clear, maybe really clear in here what I'm showing. But if you look at these icons, pretty much these are the transformations that are available out of the box in from Power Query. So I can do split columns. I can do like a find and replace. I can do transformations like if I want to extract text or if I have to introduce mission like AI capability. So here I can embed text analytics, vision, Azure machine learning, everything within the Power Query interface. So you would have never thought like all these things you can do that with a simple graphical user interface. So the last one I wanted to talk about is, so we talked about data flows, we talked about the connectors that are available, which allows you to do data integration. This is another thing to watch, which is the Azure Synapse link for Dataverse. So again, why this is really important? So one of the thing is like the Dataverse provides the ability to link the data into Azure Synapse Analytics. So I think if you are not exposed to Synapse Analytics is the one-stop shop for doing your advanced analytics on Microsoft Cloud or the Azure Cloud. So what it allows you to do is like Synapse has got this Synapse Studio, so a single user interface. So whether you start from the data capture process or the extraction process, storing the data, and what you can do is like doing enhance the data for machine learning capabilities, and also like exposing the data from down to Power BI. We used to do that in different tool sets, but with Synapse Analytics, Microsoft have unified them and provided us a tool called Synapse Studio in order to do that. But Synapse Analytics is, like it has got a couple of things. One is a Spark engine and a SQL engine, mainly used to do big data analytics. But where is the data going to come? So if your data is sitting in Dataverse, right? What now they have given is they are working on a Synapse link for Dataverse. So what does the Synapse link mean? Normally, how do you build your data warehouses? You have operational database, you create an ETL process to pull that data and put it into Synapse, so put it into a data warehouse. So which means data will be taken from operational system and the same data will be structured and stored into the data warehouse. This is what like we have been doing. But now with the help of Synapse Link for Dataverse, you don't need to duplicate that data. So what you can do is like you can pull the data directly and it can be pushed automatically into the Synapse Metastore or even Azure Data Lake. So which means what happens is you don't need to worry about, okay, I need to do incremental loads. I need to do like a full loads and things. So data will be continuously exported and stored in here. And whether it is a standard table in your Dataverse or a custom table in your Dataverse, it takes care of like because change tracking is enabled, so it knows how to do the delta loads and so on. So what it makes it easier here is I don't need to worry about creating separate ETL processes. With the help of the Synapse link for Dataverse, now I can pull all the data from Dataverse straight into my Synapse Analytics, which is going to help me to do my big data analytics in here. So if I want to if I want to recap the things that we have been focusing on, Power Platform Data Integrator, what it is available is to pull data from your D365 applications into Dataverse. Microsoft is focusing not only just on D365, it is also looking at, okay, data can be coming from any data store within the organization. So they are focusing more around or investing more into Power Platform data flows. And also like how do we bring in ML integration or AI integration inside the data space. they are still enhancing the Power Platform connectors. So this is mainly talking about like whatever connectors is there, still they are focusing around developing more enterprise grade connectors so that the enterprise data can be surfaced onto Dataverse or other Power Platform components. Then the focus is all around Power Platform data flows. Bring a tool which will help non-technical users to do data integration quite easily. And of course, what is inside data flows which will allow you to do the data integration is your Power Query. So if you haven't started using Power Query, I will encourage you to start doing that, because you will start to look into more of this in your Power Platform products going forward. And finally, the Azure Synapse link for Dataverse. So this is going to continuously get the data from your Dataverse and just continuously replicate that into your Synapse Analytics or your Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, which is going to help you in terms of doing your big data analytics. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover at an overview perspective of how data integration is happening within the Power Platform family products. Something I wanted to share before I end up. Just a sec. So these are some of the things which Microsoft is working on and planned for the release in here. So what are the new things that they are working on and that they are planning? So VNet connectivity, they are looking at that. So this is basically to secure your data. So mainly look into that if you're connecting to on-premises, right? So probably like there should be a secure connectivity between your on-premises data center and Azure data center. So that is the capability, like VNets will provide that capability, but that's something Microsoft is trying to expose it via the Power Platform product itself. And of course, data flows. A lot of connections that are increasing in the Dataverse, like what are the data sources that they connect to, and they are trying to bring that as a unified data flow platform across the Power Platform family, including Power BI. So if you look at all these things, there is lots coming in the integration space in this year. So keep watching this space. I think some of these topics will be furthermore expanded in the coming months, and we will be once we start getting much more stable preview products, we'll be start demonstrating them. And look at the list of Power Query connectors that is also increasing. And again, if you look at it more, Microsoft is targeting towards enterprise platform products like Informix. You have Sybase there, Vertica there, so like Hadoop distributed system there. So they are targeting all these legacy things which organizations have got, and how do we surface that data in there. And also they are focusing more around the Power Query Online. So this is like a more functionality. So Power Query on desktop has got a lot of functionality, and now they are making sure like enhancing more of that functionality on Power Query Online. And finally, also a lot of updates on the on-premises gateway. So watch this space. There is lots going on from a data integration perspective in the Power Platform space. That's something you need to keep watching in that. And of course, we will keep you posted in future meetups around the data improvements that are happening in Power Platform. So there are quite a few URLs here that will help you to get started around or get to know about what integration platforms that I have been discussing in the last 20 minutes. So mainly to tell you like, okay, when I talked about Power Query, the connectors, data flows, what does it really mean? And how do I go and connect to a data flow and so on through these URLs? And thanks, Romy, for giving me the opportunity again to present at the Power Platform Bootcamp. And happy to do further more demos in the future once the products have got a bit more maturity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anu, for presenting. Awesome session. Do we have any questions from the audience? If not, I've got a question. One of the things that I find really challenging, because I'm not a data person, and most of the time we're more on the Dataverse side than the Power Platform. But then when it comes to exporting that data and doing an ETL or dealing with it, it's a whole new world, and there's so many different ways of doing things. One of the questions that we usually get from customers is, what is the best tool to extract the data from Dataverse and then run a near real-time ETL process that would integrate that data with other systems? What is the best way of doing that?
That's always the challenging question, right? Because it depends on what is the data store that they are going to do for real-time reporting and stuff. So if you take an example like for Power Platform, you use Dataverse. So we are saying like, okay, get all the data in Dataverse and then pretty much use Dataverse as a mechanism to expose the data through your Power Platform components. But when we do like analytics and things like what is the best way to do that, now I think the focus is more around Synapse. The reason for that is Microsoft is investing more on Synapse and also building this direct connectors. So one thing is like, for instance, similar to the Synapse link I explained to you for Dataverse to Synapse, they have a Synapse link from Cosmos DB to Synapse. So what they are saying is you don't need to duplicate the data what you have in Cosmos DB. You can pull all the Cosmos DB data and on the fly, you can do advanced analytics without any ETL process. So that is the way that they are. So that is what the future is going to look like. So how do you try and avoid the ETL process? So if your data is clean, can you stream the data directly into tools like Synapse using those links that are available? That's one way of looking at it. The second way, which is typically always happens because you can't go into an organization and change all the legacy systems to give quality data, right? So you have to go through some sort of transformation process. So there are two ways in here. One is if your organization has got developers and things who are there in order to build a proper data people who can build a proper data store, that's one way of doing your ETL process. Or you can use Power Query. So that's where Microsoft have now figured out, okay, so there is a huge reliance on ETL developers to get the data, which means there is going to be a delay because more and more why they are investing on Power Platform products is you don't want to wait for IT people to do things for the business because they know what they really want and sometimes trying to translate that they lose things. So by bringing in tools like Power Query, which has got the power of doing all the transformations without a user, like without a developer need, that's going to be the future. So how can you make the citizen developers like to do data transformation? So they are now looking at that in that aspect. So if I want to go for enterprise organizations, first I will do the assessment saying what is like the skill set the organization, the maturity the organization has got. Can they handle tools like because when you give them to self-service tools, right? Governance is really important. Otherwise, we won't have a single source of the truth. So that's where, to a certain extent, when you have things like data flows, get someone to get expose the data up to data flows, and from there on you expose that to your citizen developers because you have a certain governance and control up to how data hits into the data flow and some structure how you present the data. From there on people can start consuming it because it's more around consumption, so that's okay. So that's how I will split in the current landscape.
Very valid points. And it's interesting that you're talking about sort of citizen developers. To me, that concept was always around sort of building quick apps and all of that, but it also applies to data as well. Historically, we've always thought, you need to know SQL, you need to be sort of know data inside out so you can actually build those queries. But no, with the modern tools, it's becoming so easy for everybody to use. So there's a couple of questions in the chat. The one is, if you do not have a connector to SAS, what are the ways to integrate the data? So SAS.
Okay, so I'm thinking this is like SQL Server analysis services. So I think you have connectors, like Power Query has got a connector to SQL Server analysis services. So you should be able to connect to Power Query, like SSAS through Power Query, and you should be able to get the data. Otherwise, okay, software as a service, sorry, SaaS. Okay, if that is the case, custom connectors. So you have the ability to develop custom connectors. So I will be always looking at there are 300 plus connectors in the connectors family. So if you really find there is a data source that you are actually trying to pull the data where you don't have a pre-built connector already from Microsoft, you can build custom connectors and you can pull the data. So custom connectors is what I was talking about, that is available to pull data from data sources where pre-built connectors are not available.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. It is quite common. Like even if you're connecting to an environment that is relatively custom, so for example, Azure services that you've built, then you can build a custom connector and it would look as if it's native and become sort of a citizen developer tool. So really good. The other question I guess I can answer is just around pricing and Dataverse. So yeah, Dataverse compared to Azure SQL, for example, is significantly more expensive. So if you want to do advanced analytics, it's better to look at other alternatives, cheaper sort of secondary storage. So like either if it's semi-structured, something like Cosmos DB, Azure Data Lake Storage, or potentially like blob storage. So Azure ADLS is powered by blob storage, or even just pure Azure SQL. The thing about Dataverse is that you get all the extra services that come with it, and that's the user interface, that also like the AI builder integration, the native integration with Power Automate, and so on. So it depends on what your licensing model is and what is your appetite for actually using those extra services. Keep in mind that as you buy more Dataverse licenses, you get storage with it. So if you have a large organization with many users and all of them want to use the Dataverse or the Power Platform ecosystem, then the storage is accumulated based on the number of licenses that you've got. So awesome session. We're slightly over time. Thank you very much, Anu, for taking some time off of your Saturday. And hopefully we'll see you again in the upcoming conference in March. So thank you. Thank you very much for that.
And don't forget the Global AI Bootcamp.
Absolutely. Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much.